Robert first noticed it while shaving, a minuscule delay in his reflection, a flicker where his movements didn't quite sync. He paused, razor hovering, and peered closer. The image in the mirror mimicked him perfectly. Had it always been like this, a trick of the light, perhaps? He shrugged it off, attributing it to an overactive imagination. The following days, however, brought a creeping unease. The lag in the reflection persisted, growing more pronounced. It was subtle, a beat behind his actions, a whisper of a pause, brushing his teeth, buttoning his shirt. The man in the mirror seemed almost hesitant, a ghostly echo trailing behind. Robert found himself avoiding mirrors, a strange anxiety knotting in his stomach. He tried to rationalize it. Stress, he told himself, overwork. Yet deep down, a primal fear began to stir. The reflection was no longer a faithful reproduction. It had taken on a life of its own, a chilling sentience that sent shivers down his spine. Sleep offered little respite. His dreams were haunted by distorted reflections, whispering his name with icy breaths. He woke each morning with a jolt, heart pounding, a thin sheen of cold sweat clinging to his skin. The line between reality and nightmare blurred. One evening, as he sat alone in his dimly lit living room, Robert caught movement out of the corner of his eye. The mirror, positioned above the fireplace, seemed to shimmer, the reflection within rippling like water disturbed. He froze, every sense on high alert. A low, guttural whisper, barely audible, slithered from the mirror's surface. He couldn't make out the words, but a wave of icy dread washed over him. The room felt colder now, the air thick with an unseen presence. He told himself it was the wind, a creaking floorboard, anything but the truth that whispered in the reflection's cold gaze. The culmination came on a night choked by a thick fog. Robert lay in bed, unable to sleep, the events of the past weeks weighing heavily on his mind. He could feel its presence lurking just beyond the veil of reality. He sat up, his gaze drawn involuntarily to the antique mirror across the room, and then it happened. His reflection moved not in tandem with him, but independently. As he watched, paralyzed with terror, the reflection's lips curled into a slow, knowing smirk, a smirk that wasn't reflected on his own face. Time seemed to distort, stretching into an endless, horrifying tableau. The whisper from the mirror intensified, no longer a murmur, but a rasping voice that seemed to slither directly into his mind. Soon it hissed, the sound like sandpaper on bone. Very soon now. Robert stumbled back, a strangled cry escaping his lips. He pressed himself against the wall, his eyes never leaving the smirking reflection. The whisper echoed in the silence of his room, growing fainter, receding into the depths of the mirror. When the fog finally lifted the next morning, Robert was gone. The room was empty, save for the antique mirror that hung above the fireplace. The reflection staring back was no longer distorted, no longer held a sinister smirk. Or did it? A flicker of movement, a ghost of a smile, so fleeting it was impossible to tell if it was real or simply a trick of the morning light. The mirror held its secrets close, a silent sentinel in the empty room, leaving behind the chilling question, who was reflecting whom?